We're live. And there's a hair in my coffee. There's just so much going on that I actually prepared show notes today because just with my ADHD brain, I knew if I didn't prepare show notes, I would miss something because there's just been a lot of BS happening. So this is my third cup of coffee. I normally do two, but yesterday wore me out, everyone. Yesterday really wore me out because well, the regime is doing their BS. So yeah, everyone welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. As a reminder, if you can't catch the whole broadcast today, I will be putting the replay up for those who want to watch it on a delay. It takes, I don't know, an hour and a half for the replay to process after I conclude this live, and then I post it, and then it'll also be on YouTube. So that's always available too if you need to share this with anyone or if you want to rewatch it, fact check. I'm not opposed to fact checking, unlike the regime. I'd love for you to fact check me and let me know if I get shit wrong because that's, important to me. I like truth and I try really hard to get things correctly. It's the Tylenol. It's the Tylenol. We'll get into that later too. So I have a lot of thoughts about all of that. Some thoughts might be a little controversial. I don't know. We'll see. But we'll get into that. I want to start with good news because so much of this shit I have on my show notes is heavy. I have a lot of heavy stuff to get into today, unfortunately. So let's start with some good news. Jimmy Kimmel is going to be back tonight on ABC Tuesday night. So with threat of losing their FCC license, Disney ABC had pulled Jimmy Kimmel off, bowing to the regime. And those of us with platforms shared the news and encouraged people to boycott Disney Plus, Hulu, and just not spend money at Disney anywhere, cancel your Disney vacations, all of those things. And Disney had so many unsubscriptions from like Hulu and Disney Plus that their cancellation page got glitchy and couldn't handle the traffic from people canceling Disney and Hulu Plus. And then Disney stock plummeted because of it, which, that just kind of shows now Jimmy Kimmel's coming back. But one thing I want to say is something that has been brought to my attention with the fact that Disney stock plummeted is there's been a disturbing trend with people buying, like waiting for these stocks to bottom out and buying up stock and then making money if they go back up. And so somebody's probably getting rich off the Disney stock plummeting because they're going to buy a shit ton of Disney stock when it's low and then make money when it goes back up. So let's make sure that Disney stock doesn't go back up, right? Let's, like too little, too late. Like, yes, Kimmel's back. That's great. But let's not like run back and resubscribe to Disney Plus and start rescheduling our Disney vacations and join back into Hulu because they did this. Let's not reward them. Just like Target, let's watch Target die. Like, F you, Target, too little, too late, right? Like, we know it's only about the money. It's not because it's what's right. And so, just because Disney is like walking it back now and bringing Jimmy Kimmel back, it's not because they care about doing the right thing. It's because they don't want to lose money because they're greedy and they don't care about anything but money. So, just because they've brought Jimmy Kimmel back, I'm going to say still don't fall for it. They don't care about doing what's right or they wouldn't have let Jimmy Kimmel go in the first place. So that's just my little thought about that. And then also like, if the Disney stock shoots back up all of a sudden, whoever bought a bunch of Disney stock when people sold because the bottom fell out because people panic when stock starts to plummet. Like whoever bought that stock at a low price could be making a lot of money if that stock goes back up. So let's not help make the rich richer, shall we? Like, because that's like even like Tesla stock, like when Tesla stock fell, Elon bought even more of his own stock and then, making money. They're making money even when the stocks fall out sometimes. And so I'm like, that's interesting. Just something to be aware of. So now let's get into, I'm going to try and go in a little bit of sequential order of what things are happening. And so before I talk about the autism stuff, I want to talk about this Oh, hang on. Hang on. I'm trying to get a dentist appointment, and my dentist just texted me back. And I just got a dentist appointment tomorrow. Yay! Okay, sorry, distraction. Real life happens. Yeah, I am gonna go to the dentist. Yay! And no, yeah, it's not something you're generally happy about, but yeah, I need to go to the dentist, so that'll be great. What was I saying? Okay, going in sequential order. Thank you for your patience. Before we talk about autism, I want to talk about something else that happened this past week or weekend. Everything blurs because so much shit happens, and so much shit happened really over the weekend. Um, this move to push and label trans people as NVEs. Has anyone heard about this? And so I've been having a lot of feelings after hearing that the regime basically has this goal to classify transgender people as nihilistic, violent extremists. And for those of you who didn't hear about this, it's really insidious and really shady. Basically, there's a think tank, a conservative think tank that's behind Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation. I think we're all hopefully acquainted with who the Heritage Foundation is at this point in time. And then they also have another spin-off group from the Heritage Foundation called the Oversight Project. And so this think tank is basically urging the FBI to add transgender ideology inspired violent extremism, or TIVE, to its list of domestic extremist groups so that it can detect, disrupt, and dismantle TIVE cells. And they are, of course, citing the assassination of Charlie Kirk as the latest example in, what they are saying is uh, violence inspired by trans ideology, which it doesn't really work. They've made these claims that maybe the partner of the shooter was a trans person, which not really seen anything on that confirmed. This person hasn't come forward or anything like that. And then if you read these text messages that they are using to try and say it was a conversation between these two young people, it just seems so fishy. Like the language doesn't sound like how a 22-year-old would talk. There are no timestamps on this transcript, which is even more strange because you would think you'd have the times to help like see if things are relevant. For example, I think like the word automobile was used. It's like, what kid called their vehicle an automobile, right? Or vehicle or something like that, like in a text message when you are like literally in danger. Like it's like these long typed out messages. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense. And even MAGA's like, this is funny. Um, and then there's a video because I've been, I spend a lot of time watching MAGA content, which is brain numbing sometimes. But I watch that MAGA BS, so you don't have to. You're welcome. And so there's MAGA influencers who have basically been dissecting the footage of when the shooting happened. And so they have a conspiracy theory that is going viral in MAGA, and what they are claiming, and I don't know enough about this to say if these claims are true or not, is that they are actually claiming, based on slowed down footage of what happened, that Kirk was not shot from the front. They're claiming he was shot from the back because they're saying, like, you see a blood spatter first here, and they're claiming that this looks more like an exit wound than an entry wound. And if that's true, which I like, I'm saying I am not knowledgeable enough to know if this conspiracy theory is true or has teeth. But if that's true, wow. And a lot of people, even before this conspiracy theory started to be proposed on the MAGA side, and MAGA loves conspiracy theories, so it's just really interesting to see. Even before that was proposed, a lot of people on both sides were saying this was so like perfect. It really seemed professional. And even I myself thought that, but I wasn't really saying it because, like I said, once again, I am not a ballistics expert, but it was just like knowing when we've had other shootings in the past, just the one shot, like having it be one shot and from supposedly really far away and all of that. I was like, wow, that kid's a really good shot, really well organized, and just the fact that he was able to elude capture for so long was like really interesting. And so I've been watching MAGA, and MAGA, who this official story is for, who they're trying to like used to incite violence against trans people and the left. Like, even MAGA is like, this is fishy, something's wrong. And MAGA has all these conspiracy theories about what actually happened. And they're basically not, even MAGA is not believing the official story, which I think is really interesting. Like, I've seen, like, there's some, like, Candace Owens and Laura Loomer have been brawling on TikTok, going at each other. I'm just like, watch them eat each other live. It's hilarious. Some MAGA people are, and even some people on the left, I've seen this too, are saying that maybe it was Israel because Charlie Kirk had been speaking out against Israel. Like I said, I'm just saying these are conspiracy theories, theories that are not, proven at this point in time, that a lot of people have. And it's just really interesting to see that even MAGA isn't believing the official story. And there are so many theories bouncing around. And, anytime there's any kind of political assassination, there are always conspiracy theories. But you would think MAGA would really want to latch on to this official story that it was, related to trans people somehow, and MAGA people were really quick to take the bait, but now they're like kind of backing off, like something's fishy here. So I think that's really interesting. Did you see the Charlie Kirk funeral rally on Sunday? No, I didn't watch that. I knew exactly what it would be. And I took a break on Sunday. It's kind of the only day of rest I took this week. Because this weekend was just so much. And then I knew Monday was going to be a lot when I was going to digest the Kirk rally on Monday. And then I heard that there was going to be an autism announcement on Monday. And so, being an autistic person, I felt like my perspective on that was unique, and that I should focus on the autism thing, because there's so many people who can dissect that Kirk rally from a lot of different marginalizations and intersections, but there aren't as many autistic people who could dissect and talk about what was coming with the autism announcement that happened yesterday. And so I took Sunday off and prepared for a very long day yesterday, covering the BS that Trump had to say about autistic people. But like, and that was also after like getting the announcement late last week that they're trying to label trans people as NVEs and TIVE cells. And before I move past that, this is as a non-binary gender fluid person who is a very big public um, presence, who's been very outspoken about trans and queer rights over the year. This TVE announcement like has me on standby researching what I have to do in case I have to like evacuate the country with my dogs and David, and potentially playing like, do we just need to go to a safer state? Do we need to evacuate the country? If so, what is that going to look like? So my life has been a little stressful, and so this TVE thing, I want to just share, because like, if you're not trans, you might not have been paying attention to this, but like, it's a really good time to check on your trans friends and the trans people in your life and trans people you care about. If you know who they are, because you might not know. We could be anywhere. We could be invisible. You might have no idea people are trans. But basically, I just want to explain what this classification is. This nihilistic violent extremist is like this new category that was created literally earlier this year, and it is defined as nihilistic violent extremists is defined as criminal conduct in furtherance of political, social, or religious goals that drive primarily from a hatred of society at large and desire to bring about its collapse by sowing indiscriminate chaos. So, like, basically, they think trans people existing, and rejecting society's gender norms and rejecting assimilation into gender norms is because we hate society and we want society to collapse, and we're just sowing chaos by refusing to comply with the binary gender. We are refusing assimilation And that to them is chaos because that is what all of this is about. They want gender assimilation. They want neuro assimilation. They want race-based assimilation. They want to get rid of anyone who's not a white cis straight person who's not neuro average. It's all about toxic assimilation. Um, and it's just really heavy. And I'm tired. I'm worried. I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm paying very close attention, but it's also scary because it's if being trans is labeled as some kind of violent extremist groups, are they going to take me off social media? Like, are they going to take away my communities I have very carefully and meticulously been curating for the past 9 years? Are they, is it going to be worse than that? Like, are we going to lose our home? Are we going to not be able to keep our dogs together? Am I going to end up locked up in some kind of prison somewhere? They've already decimated my consulting business, and now social media and the community is really the only thing that is kind of keeping this blog going and keeping me going because I've got all of you supporting me here on Substack. I could not keep doing this without Substack, and my Facebook page is monetized right now, but that's been taken away many times, and I'm just waiting for them to demonetize me again. um it's because I've been demonetized so many times on Facebook. I get in trouble because someone mass reports me and it's taken away. So it's just am I going to lose my last source of income? Are we going to lose our place to live? Are we going to lose our freedom? Are we going to lose our lives? Have I just fucked everyone I care about over because me and anyone associated with me is going to be labeled an extremist? I just have so many thoughts right now. And so I'm just in this waiting and watching kind of mode. And I've I knew this was coming. But it's still really shocking and scary to see that it's here. And so that's why I say check on the trans people you care about and in your lives, because not everyone knew this was coming. And so I can only imagine how trans people who didn't really know this was coming and know it was going to be this intense are feeling right now. I was mentally prepared for this. I knew it was not if, but when, and it was still such a big, heavy thing for me to see it. And so a lot of trans people aren't okay, especially if you're in Texas. When I'm in Texas, whew, and it's hard because Texas is where people are always just oh, get out of Texas. You need to leave Texas. And it's not that simple for a lot of us, in Texas. I have family here, and so I have family responsibilities and loved ones that I care about and need me. It's not just selfish leave Texas, although my family does support that I might have to leave eventually, and it's a really sad, scary conversation I've had with my family that I might have to leave eventually. And I don't know how we're going to support ourselves if we do leave, because being in Texas means we've got a really good deal where we don't pay any kind of rent. We have a place to stay on some land that is not our land, but in exchange for being allowed to park our little trailer here and to stay here in this poor trailer that has no plumbing. No plumbing and no running water, but at least I have electricity. That's awesome. And AC that kind of sometimes works, and it's a whole mess, but it's better than nothing, right? I have a roof over my head in this little old trailer that's fallen apart, and my roof's falling. Anyway, we're not going to talk about the state of the trailer because just can't afford to deal with it, so I can't think about it. But we have this little travel trailer that has seen better days, and it's a place to stay. It's a roof over my head, which is so much more than some people have. And we can park here for free in exchange for we help tend and take care of the acreage out here. And so we take care of the land. And there's we've been cultivating native wildflowers, and we've planted and reintroduced some native bushes. And I ethically harvested some native seeds for some native trees that I came across recently. And so I'm going to germinate some seeds and put some native trees back in, hopefully before we leave. But I don't know, we might have to leave before then. I might not get to finish my native tree project. And so in exchange for re-indigenizing this land and taking care of this land and helping to the person who does own this land care for it, we've got a place to stay, which is the best deal ever because I really enjoy playing in the dirt and like cultivating the wildflowers and making a pollinator heaven for all of the little birds and bees and the pollinators. We don't have hummingbirds. I've been trying really hard to get hummingbirds, and that's the one thing I haven't gotten yet. And I think that's because we don't have enough trees for them, which is why I got these trees that I've been wanting. And there's one other tree I want to find, but I haven't been able to find it yet, because I really want to put native indigenous trees to the area and indigenous plants and things, because once they're established, they're native, they can just go and they don't need to be watered, because we need things to be drought tolerant and things that can tolerate the climate here and things like that. So like that's been like my passion project outside of work, and it's just been really wonderful. It's like, in exchange for a place to stay, I'm getting to like rewild some acreage, and it's just I don't know, it's been like healing for me. And I'm really sad because like when we got stuck here, I wanted nothing more but to be on the road and be traveling in the RV like we had been for the previous 3 years. And I felt really stuck. And like now, we're just getting to a point where I was okay being here and I don't actually want to leave anymore. Like, I actually would like to stay. And I don't know if we're going to be able to, because Texas sucks and this whole country is really becoming hostile towards queer people and autistic people. Example of Texas specifically sucking. Um, we've got a new bathroom bill that was signed recently by Governor Asshole Abbott, and that takes effect on December 4th. And it is, one of the most restrictive bathroom bills in the nation, which will restrict uh, restroom access for trans people in government buildings, including schools. And so basically, the law requires people in government-owned buildings, including public schools and universities, to use certain facilities based on the sex they were assigned at birth. And so this doesn't just affect restrooms, it also affects locker rooms, shower rooms, changing rooms. It also limits family violence shelters and prisons and jails that trans people can be placed into. So it is pretty serious. Um, and, also they did a last minute amendment to it that raises the fines for this. And so the fines now for people that violate this bathroom bill is now raised to $25,000 per violation and $125,000 for subsequent violations. And so, being that a lot of trans people live at or below the poverty line, like they've really making the fines that high. Um, it's the most financially punitive bathroom bill in the entire nation. So a lot of law things are literally only an attack on poor people, in my opinion. And I spoke about this, I think, on our last live, how it's like, for example, like rich people, they don't care if there's a fine because they have money to pay it. So, like, if someone who has wealth gets a speeding ticket and it's $200 to $300 for their speeding ticket, they just pay that because it's pocket change to them. It's not actually much of a punishment to people who have money to waste and to blow. Like, because those kinds of people will spend thousands of dollars on a handbag or a hat or some shoes or a watch. They'll spend thousands of dollars on things like that and not bat an eye at it. So like a couple $100, $300 is nothing to someone with wealth and capital. While as like, I don't know about you, but for me, if I have to spend 200 or $300 on a traffic ticket, I might not eat. That's my grocery money. That's money I need to survive, right? And so it's disproportionately impacts people who don't have access to financial wealth and capital. And that's almost any kind of thing where financial fees and fines are imposed on people. Because like I learned this when I worked in as an executive assistant in a very corporate environment for someone who is of financial wealth. Um, and they would just be like, I would come back and be like, the city says this is illegal. We absolutely can't do it. And they're like, well, it doesn't matter. We need to do it anyway because we're going to make more money if we do it. So we'll just do it. We'll take the fine. We'll deal with whatever charges come up against us later. We'll do it. And so like I refuse to put my name on the files. I was like, okay, well, if you're doing something illegal, I'm putting your name on it. I'm not putting my name on it. Like I refuse to get a criminal record for you. And I actually got a little bit of a pushback on that, but in the end, um, I was firm and I'm like, I'm not putting my name on this permit if you're going to do something illegal with it. Like I refused and I put their name on it. And so then they had to go to court and then they got a fine and they're like, look, I got a Class C misdemeanor and they thought it was funny. And I'm just like, you think this is funny, but it would literally have ruined my life if I would have put my name on that paper and you can just pay it because you're making millions of dollars on this event. And that's just how rich people think. They like, do the crime, ask for forgiveness later, and if not, we'll just pay the fine. It's no big deal to them because they have money to waste. And it just really showed me how disproportionately our system punishes people who are poor and don't have capital available to them. Like someone with money will just pay the fine, make it go away. Someone who doesn't have money will either pay the fine and then not eat the next month, or they won't pay the fine and then they'll get sent to jail and they'll have to sit in jail to do the time because they don't have money. And then they'll lose their job because their job usually will be like, oh, you were in jail. That's not an excused absence. You're fired. And it'll ruin their whole lives. So it's like so disproportionate how like basically it makes crime, they don't punish rich people for crimes. And people are like, well, yeah, they have to pay fines just like the rest of us. No, it's not just like the rest of us because to them it's pocket change. To them, it doesn't feel like a consequence. They're just like, oh, I know I can do it. I can afford it. Let's just do it. It's a calculated risk that a lot of times, like to them, is nothing. And it's just really, it was a really eye-opening thing to see how rich people think of being fined for doing crime. Like they know that they'll get off of it. They know they have lawyers and things. Um, so yeah, it's just unfortunate. Okay. So I've seen people asking about Trump's autism announcement yesterday. And I do have a lot of notes on this put down. I kind of knew before they went live most of what was going to be proposed. I'd been listening, I'd been researching, and we've seen the narrative over the past few months on this. So, it wasn't a surprise to me, most of what they were saying. Basically, I watched and I'm still digesting what was said by Trump's anti-autistic propaganda team. But here's what bothered me the most about it. Regardless of like what they're blaming, because they blame vaccines, they blame Tylenol. They'll blame different things. Like if that turns out not to be it, they'll find something else to blame. Like what they're blaming doesn't matter to me so much as the fact that they are blaming autism. Like autism is something bad. Like autism is this boogeyman. And so there's three things that really bugged me the most, regardless of, what they're blaming and what they're pitching, would be like the very dehumanizing rhetoric that was spewed yesterday, how even just the existence of autistic people was painted as this tragedy over and over again. Very sad. It's very sad. It's a tragedy. And how they described autistic people as basically an unsustainable burden on the country, as like this problem we have to solve because autism is going to cost the United States so much money if we don't get rid of these autistic people. And this is rhetoric I am completely familiar with because back in, I think it was 2019, when I was advocating at the Texas State Capitol against Texas wanted to start covering ABA therapy under, I don't remember if it was Medicare or Medicaid, but one of those. I get confused between the two. And Texas was putting a bill up to start covering ABA under publicly funded healthcare. And we had put up a bill, me and a group of advocates, to try and stop this from happening until after there was a study done on the efficacy and effectiveness of ABA therapy to evaluate if it actually had the outcomes they were claiming and proposing ABA had for autistic people. And so, it was just saying, hey, before we do this, can we do an independent study that's not done or funded by the ABA lobby that studies if these claims that they say ABA does are even true? And that was all we were really asking. But in these meetings, the ABA lobby was basically saying that if we don't start funding ABA more now, it's going to be this fiscal cliff, and like autistic people are going to be so expensive to the state of Texas, and the costs to the Texans of autism and autistic people not getting ABA is going to be so astronomical that it would basically ruin the state of Texas if they didn't give autistic people ABA. That was like a narrative that was being pushed in 2019 as a reason to finance ABA. And one of the reasons I was so opposed to ABA being funded on public healthcare in Texas, uh, other than the fact that behaviorism and forced assimilation through therapies that often can cause trauma and PTSD in autistic people, it can be really harmful. And I come from my personal experience that because I wasn't diagnosed autistic as a young person growing up, my autism was seen as behavioral issues. So my autistic traits, because nobody knew I was autistic, I wasn't seen as autistic. I was just seen as a kid with behavioral issues, and my behaviors needed to be squished. And so I was treated through behavioral lens in school. I was publicly shamed in front of my classmates for being autistic. I was taught to repress my stims. I was taught to repress and ignore my needs and signals from my body. I was even scolded and punished for needing to go to the bathroom, needing to move around, for not having impulse control because I'm also ADHD. And so I was basically punished for being neurodivergent, used behaviorism to try and erase my neurodivergent traits. And it traumatized me so badly that when I was diagnosed autistic at 29, I spent 9 years trying to specifically heal my self-abandonment trauma because I developed dissociative condition to where I was completely disconnected from my body and my body needs. And I had really bad CPTSD, and like I didn't know how to interpret my body's signals because I was used to tuning them out, because I was taught conceal, don't feel. And I was taught to ignore my feelings and that I should be averse to my feelings, whether that's sensory things or my emotional feelings. And I was basically taught to ignore my internal compass so much that I didn't know how to even um, check in with myself on how I was feeling or what I needed, or like I didn't even know my own needs because I was taught to ignore them and to make myself less of an inconvenience on other people. And this also like left me very vulnerable to abuse and coercive relationships with friends who weren't really my friends, who just wanted something from me and wanted to take advantage of me. It left me vulnerable to abuse in my romantic relationships with romantic partners, and then also left me vulnerable to exploitive relationships in the workplace where I was allowing myself to be exploited because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, because I was trained from a young age that I was the problem, my needs were the problem, and I needed to ignore my needs, tough it out, something Trump said over and over again yesterday, just need to tough it out, just need to ignore it, just need to tough it out. Like I was taught that basically ignore what I'm feeling, ignore my needs, tough it out, don't inconvenience people by asking questions or speaking up about my needs. And so that's what happened to me from having behaviorism used on me because people didn't know I was autistic. And so, like, that is why one reason I was against ABA being covered in Texas, because um, like poor and marginalized kids are more likely to have, you know, our autistic traits seen as behavioral issues that need to be squished, when in reality, the way I was behaving was a reaction to not having my needs met. I was taught to ignore my needs instead of paying attention to the signals that I had needs so I could get those needs met. Like instead it was taught to ignore the needs. It wasn't like looking at why was I so hyperactive I couldn't be still. Instead it was they're so hyperactive, we need to punish them into being still. We're going to take away their recess when actually I needed more recess. I needed more time to move. I needed more physical activity during my school day. Sitting for 8 hours a day is something I cannot do even now as an adult. And I'm 38. I still can't sit still for 8 hours a day. I can't do it. It makes me feel horrible if I do. And I was like a first grader and second grader and third, like I couldn't do it because what we're asking of children is completely unrealistic. And so the goals were unrealistic, the supports were not there, and I was basically punished for not having my needs met. Like, so that's one reason I was against it. But the other reason I was against the funding going to ABA was because I've worked on a lot of these campaigns globally, not just in Texas. But when I worked on it in Texas, I got so much pushback, and autism parents really came for me, saying I was taking away parents' rights by testifying that these parents don't know what's good for their own children because they're being told this will help, even though it's likely going to do a lot of harm. And so when I said that in an open meeting and it was I testified that, and it was like shared widely through these autism parent groups, they came for me and I started having all these death threats and all of this. But the other reason I was opposed was what I saw in like other countries and other states where they adopted ABA is they'd start with a small number amount to get it approved. And then the next year or even the next 6 months, they would come asking for, we need more money. We need more money. We need more money. And so every 6 months, the ABA lobby will come back and lobby for more money to go to ABA. And, in every state or every country, there's like a limited allocated budget that is for autism services and autism funding. And so because ABA is a 40-hour a week or more intensive program, they are asking for a lot of hours per kid. And so when you apply ABA and it's so many hours, they always want more money because they want more kids and they want more money and they want to get more hours. And because autism is a limited funding bucket, when every time someone starts funding ABA, where before ABA is funded, the services are things like speech therapy and OT and things like that. ABA starts taking all the money away from those other services from the funding bucket. And so, like, as ABA becomes more embedded in a different state or a country in what they are funding, those other services like speech and language therapy and occupational therapy and other actual therapies that are therapeutic and very helpful lose funding because the funding is now being pulled away from those more helpful therapies to ABA. And so those other therapies are no longer available. It was very, and I do understand, like, one argument the parents had for me when I was lobbying against this funding was that, parents in Texas really wanted this ABA because they don't have childcare for their autistic kids. And I understand that because a lot of autistic kids, especially if they have disruptive behaviors, because I was a kid that had disruptive behaviors, the teachers do not want us in their classrooms. My teachers did not want me in their classrooms. That's why I spent so much time out in the hallway, because I was always getting sent to the principal's office. I was always getting sent to the hallway because my teachers didn't want me in the classroom because I was disruptive to the learning environment and therefore I was taking away from other students. Although, had I been allowed to like get up and pace and move around and other things, or maybe just been allowed to sit under my desk, like, I wouldn't have been disruptive. But the fact that I couldn't comply and assimilate meant I was disruptive because they just wanted me to be like everyone else. And so those teachers didn't want kids like me in their classrooms. And so, like, we had to change me to a private school, which was a really bad thing because it ended up being a Christian nationalist fundy school, which I was only there for about 6 months because my mom found out our textbooks were racist. which is a whole nother story. But basically, the school didn't want me, so they had to find a place to do with me. And this like Christian fundy school was like, "We'll take this kid with behavioral issues." And so I ended up there for 6 months, and then I ended up having to move to a totally different school district in another city because the school didn't want me in their classrooms because I was so disruptive. And so I understand that like these parents have these kids that the schools don't want to take. Sometimes the daycares don't want to take, but you know who will take them? These ABA centers. They will take kids that are disruptive um, because they sell themselves as the answer to this disruption. And so a lot of parents were saying, well, this is the only option I have for daycare for my child. And if we get ABA, it's basically going to be free childcare for autistic kids who were like me, very disruptive, and the school system is trying to push them out, or daycares won't take them because we are too disruptive. And so like they're like, I have to work, and so I need somewhere to put my kids so I can work, because otherwise my kid's not going to eat. And I have a lot of empathy for that. But also I have a lot of mixed feelings because too, like, I had to go to school because the school threatened my guardian, saying like if I wasn't sent to school, that they would basically arrest my guardians because I was young enough that it would be truancy if they didn't send me. And it got so bad that like the school was traumatizing me, and it was like making me really sick. And like eventually, as I grew older from being in this really traumatic environment, that messed me up so bad. Like ideally, best case scenario would have been if I could have been homeschooled, but my mom didn't have the resources for that and needed to put me somewhere because she was a single parent. And so I had to go to school when I was really young. And so it really traumatized me. It really messed me up. And then as I grew older, I started to develop like stress-based neurological like symptoms, and like vomiting and stomach problems. And I was really sick. And then even then, like the idea was like school was literally making me sick. But the school was like, well, it's not contagious. So if you don't send this kid to school, then, because it's not contagious, they have to be here. You can't miss all these days. We'll arrest you. And so I had to go to school anyway. And like, honestly, the best case scenario would have been me being able to not go to the place that was making me feel like I didn't deserve to exist and make me so sick. But, we didn't have an alternative option. So it's like, you know, do you send your kids somewhere where they're going to potentially be traumatized and have trauma that's developmental trauma that's going to follow them around for the rest of their lives? Because, I've literally, since I found out I was autistic 9 years ago, been on a healing journey trying to recover from all of that early childhood developmental trauma that came from having my autism seen, viewed, and treated through a behavioral lens. And I've basically been unfucking myself, so to speak. Um, and I barely just stopped disassociating last month in August after 9 years of working on my trauma healing. And I just want other autistic kids not to have to go through all that, to have to unfuck themselves the way I've had to do. What state? Texas. Texas. So, the dehumanizing rhetoric, talking, sorry, that went on a tangent. But that's what comes from the dehumanizing rhetoric. It's the same rhetoric that is used to sell ABA and these neurodivergent conversion therapies. And I saw it when I would go and advocate against ABA at the Texas State Capitol. Like they would have me and a couple other autistic advocates and parents and caregivers. And, we were just a little grassroots organization up against Autism Speaks and their big money. And they had representatives they sent with prepared speeches. And um, it would just really, they were always using that autism is a tragedy. Autism is going to cost the state so much money, and we need to solve this autism problem. And they pitched ABA as a solution. So I just see the parallels again with the regime. And the other thing that really bothered me about what I saw yesterday is the way they enforce this idea. And I've already seen it in some of my comments sections with a few people that just don't get it, that neuroaverageness and non-autistic people are like humanity's baseline, which is completely not a neuro-affirming, not neurodiversity affirming way of looking at people. It erases the fact that human diversity, human brain and neurological diversity is a natural variation of humans. It goes back to this like enforcement of this lie that being autistic is not a natural or normal state of being and that autistic people are sick. And it's another really dangerous thing they're pushing with this is that, they're pushing there's this idea that autistic people have fought hard against for years, that there is this non-autistic person hiding inside every autistic person. If you can just chop that autism out, you can get yourself a normal person. You just got to chop that autism out. And so you can, set that non-autistic person who's stuck inside the autistic person free, and they'll be free. You can just chop off all that autism, which, as an autistic person, I beg people to understand that so many of the things I love about myself, well, yes, some things are hard because I'm autistic, but I think that has a lot to do with how society blames us instead of supporting us. And like society is not designed for our needs. And then when we speak up like, hey, I need this thing, like we can't get our freaking needs met because people are like, you don't need that. But like the way they just really won't listen to the fact that I'm like, hey, I like my autistic brain. Like I like being autistic. I don't want to not be autistic. And then they're like, yeah, but your functioning could be so much better. And I'm like, you're not autistic. Like maybe you should be made to be more autistic. Your functioning could be a whole lot better. Like they don't see, and that's me being sarcastic and snarky. But they think we need to not be autistic. And like, so many of the things I love about myself come from the fact that I'm autistic. And honestly, some of the things you all love about me come from the fact that I'm autistic. Like my obsessiveness and my inability to let things go, the fact that I've been obsessed with neurodiversity for the past 9 years and can't let this shit go, and the fact that this blog exists is because of my autistic tendency to hyper focus. And so much of the way I look at the world and the theories I propose and the things that people resonate with are because I'm autistic. Like it is my personality. It is what I'm passionate about. It is the people I resonate with. So many of my favorite people in my life are autistic, and my favorite things about these people are autistic traits. I would not change them for the world. Like I surround myself with other autistic and neurodivergent people because I love autistic people, and non-autistic people, no offense to any of you who are listening, I just don't relate to you as well. I'm sorry, I don't. Um, I don't want to say non-autistic people are boring. I don't want to say that, but I kind of just said it. I don't jive with them as well, and I don't know. I find it really insulting that they want to like enforce this neuroaverageness on autistic people, and I think that autistic people can't live happy lives if we don't do whatever the rest of non-autistic people are doing. If we have non-traditional lives, like we can't be happy. And it's just really frustrating to me. All of that's really frustrating to me, because our society likes to pretend there's not a caste system in this Eurocentric world. But we do have a caste system. We have a caste system. And I was talking to one of my closest friends who comes from a country where they have a very different caste system. And also, a lot of my ancestors are from Mexico. So, and even before Mexico was Mexico. But all of that, like, there was a caste system in Mexico. Like, it was based on race and colorism. And so, like there are caste systems that are based on different traits. But in the United States, our caste system is based on wealth and capital and money. And so, like, because we have this caste system that is engineered and applied to us in the United States, it views people who have less money as the bottom of the caste system. And so it devalues people who maybe struggle to thrive in capitalism and can't handle traditional employment and things. And so our caste system defines success as people who are able to bring in the most capital, then you are at the top of the caste system. Just look at the freaking billionaires, and people literally idolize and worship billionaires. And so people who have disabilities or can't work for whatever reason, even like people who maybe used to work once upon a time, but now as we age, we can no longer work. Like the value people put on us is lower if we're not producing and making capital. And that's really BS. And that's part of the whole thing that they use as part of their assimilation thing is they want us to assimilate and participate in the caste system and try to make more money because productivity makes you valuable, which is bullshit. It's like, you're a human, you're alive, you're a creature, you're valuable. Like, the dogs, they don't make money, they're valuable because they're living creatures. And capitalism and this caste system and money and credit scores and all this crap is made up shit people invented that we don't even fucking have to do. Like, we could just not do that. We live on an earth that really provides and gives us everything we need to survive if we fricking take care of it. Like, this is a big thing that bothers me so much. It's like, there's free, clean water this earth makes for us if we take care of the water and we keep the water clean. We need water and we need air to survive. And all we have to do to be provided with water, air, and food, free food that doesn't cost money, is to take care of the earth and take care of the planet. We are made here to be custodians of the earth and its natural creatures, whether those are plant, animal, fungus, like the earth itself. Like, if we take care of the earth, it will take care of us. We don't need to have capitalism. We don't need to have money. We don't need to have credit scores. Like, what the fuck is wrong with us that we do that? And like, at the same time, we're so disconnected from the earth and the fact that we are basically carbon and water and oxygen that is like constantly recycled. Like, we are one with this earth thing. We're like part of it. We're like cells living on the earth. Like we have little bacterias and things living on our faces and our bodies. Like, we are like those little amoebas on the earth, right? Like, we are not separate from it. We are dependent on it to survive, but we are acting like parasites. And what do we do when we have parasites in our body? Like, if we have healthy gut bacteria, it helps us thrive. But if we have something that makes us sick, we will take something to get rid of it. And like, we are acting in a very bad way that eventually the earth may be forced to eject us because we aren't acting in a way that is in unity with the earth. We're pretending we are some separate thing from the earth when we are of the earth. We're so of the earth, we are like literally built of the same material the earth is built on. And there's not a creature, a living thing, mammal, fish, fungus, plant, that doesn't need water to survive. We are all made up of water, needing water, passing water, and the water has been here longer than we have. And so, like, it is so important that we take care of the water and clean air, because if we don't have water and clean air, we're all gonna freaking die. And we don't even do that. And it's so freaking basic. Like, clean water is like the thing everything needs to live. And we think we're separate from the earth. And if we aren't even paying attention to the fact that we need clean water to live. Like, everything needs clean water to live. And if we don't take care of the water and the air and the bees and everything else, we're all going to die because we're not separate from the earth. And nobody's going to go immigrate to Mars. It's not going to freaking happen. Like, we can't even handle the space travel. So it's just like a delusion and a distraction, making people think, oh, when we destroy this planet, we'll just extract all the resources from it and we'll move to another one. No, when we destroy this planet, we all die. And, even if they find a way to colonize Mars, which, colonization, gross, say we find a way to colonize Mars, they're not going to take anyone but the richest, wealthiest of the wealthy because they think the rest of us don't deserve it. That's what they believe. They have this lie that they sell that, but under this capitalism caste system, like, we're all taught our whole lives that if we're taught growing up, like, we can do anything if we set our minds to it. All we have to do is work hard. And then if we believe that lie because we're indoctrinated into it growing up, it's really easy for us to think, oh, that means people who aren't thriving and aren't successful and aren't making a lot of capital, it's because they aren't trying. It's because they aren't working hard. It's because they're lazy. Like, we believe it. And this is a lie they sell us. And it is like an oversimplification. It is completely lacking nuance. It ignores privilege and like the systemic differences that hold some of us down. Like, and when I believed this lie that all I had to do to be successful in life was to try harder. And then I believed anytime I wasn't successful in life, it was just because I wasn't trying hard enough. I was this person who was constantly burning myself out and making myself physically and mentally unwell. I got to a point where I just wanted to drive off a bridge because I thought, well, I suck. I'm not enough. It's my fault. And I'm never going to be able to do it. And I just give up. Like, because I literally blame myself because I was taught my whole life that to be successful, all you have to do is try hard. And anyone who's not trying hard is lazy. And so I applied that to myself when I was not thriving. I was like, it's just because I'm lazy and I'm garbage and I'm not trying hard enough and I'm too tired. I can't try any harder. So because I can't try hard enough, I must suck. And so I was like, I want to drive off a bridge. And then I was diagnosed autistic, and I was like, the expectations were really unfair. And I could see how the playing field wasn't level for all of us. And it was just this like aha moment for me. Mm. So, look, that's part of what they are using to sell as autism is something that needs to be gotten rid of. It's like, well, look at all these autistic people that aren't participating in capitalism in the traditional way. They're under or unemployed. And this is a tragedy because we're not producing for the working class or for the owner class, right? We're not producing. We're not being good little worker bees. They want us to be something that they can exploit. They don't want to support us. They don't want to give support. They want to exploit. And you see that in capitalism like over and over again with this encouragement of self-abandonment and encouragement of people to work themselves to death and not rest. And like they teach you to, when I was in corporate America, it was like exhaustion was a badge of honor. Like you were proud of how exhausted you were all the time. Like they self-abandonment and self-denial and not resting and not taking care of yourself and not having time to do fun things was like, I'm so busy. I don't have time to do anything fun. Look at me. I'm busy. I'm successful because I'm busy. Busyness was parallel to success. And it's really fucking toxic. Um, so they use that caste system based on busyness and capital as a way to devalue autistic people and people with disabilities. And they use it to push the autism cure narrative, which is the other thing that really, really bothered me about the autism bullshit that came out yesterday. And so it's like they perpetuated this already debunked myth that people can become autistic and can potentially be cured of autism when we already know and it is well established that autism is a lifelong developmental difference. So we're born autistic and we're going to be autistic when we take our final breaths at the end of our lives. And, being on the internet 9 years ago, back when the cure narrative and the woe is me, autism is a tragedy, I hate my life and I hate my autistic kid and I'm at war with autism was the main narrative when I was diagnosed. I already know what happens when we scare parents and make people afraid of autism and we tell them autism is something we need to fight. And, it and we tell people, "Oh, you need to fight autism. Don't accept that your loved one is autistic. Fight it." And, it hurts autistic people and it hurts, our families and it hurts everyone. And, we had this autism war that used to be going on. And so it's like, I'm worried, like, back 9 years ago, we had groups and we called them bleachers because they were literally giving their autistic children bleach because they thought autism was something that was infecting and infesting their child. Like there was all these theories about what caused autism instead of like we're born autistic, like it's something we're born with. And so, these parents were literally like giving their autistic children bleach and bleach enemas, and they thought it was a parasite that they were going to get out of their autistic kids. And then autistic kids were like shedding their intestinal linings, and parents were taking, this is graphic warning, I'm describing something graphic. Parents were picking this up in paper towels and taking pictures of their children's shed intestinal linings and saying, look, here's this giant parasite that just came out of my autistic kid. And I shit you not, this was a big thing 9 years ago because, these parents were made to be afraid, and they were just like told it was going to ruin their kids for the rest of their lives. And that they were told falsely that there's a normal non-autistic kid hiding under their autistic kid. And it's like, it pushes the idea that autism can be cured. It pushes the idea that autism is something you can develop. It pushes the idea that autism is not normal. It's not a normal variation of humanity. And so it pushes all these lies that just really stigmatize and hurt autistic people. And, there's a lot more about this. I guess, autistic people, because I know I've got other autistic readers. I've seen a few of you pop in. Did you watch it? Like, how are you feeling about, what was said yesterday about it? I've said this before. Tylenol doesn't cause autism. Sex does. Autistic people reproducing is what causes autism. It's not autism. It's not Tylenol. It's not vaccines. Now, that's not to say that nobody ever has any kind of a reaction to a vaccine. Like, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if someone has a reaction to a vaccine, say that happens, that's not autism. Now, that doesn't mean like, thinking of myself as an autistic person, I am very sensitive to every kind of medication there is because I am autistic. And so a lot of autistic people are a lot more sensitive to things. So, it could be possible autistic person could already be autistic, and then, something else could happen, or we could have a reaction to things. But, we already know autism is something we're born with. So it's just really scary. And the other myth that I saw being pushed, is this whole, like, I even saw one of the parents that spoke was like, I hate the idea of the spectrum. I have a lot of problems with the spectrum. And she's one of those that, pushes this profound autism narrative. And I want to be careful with how I say this, but like, I've started to even shift away from using the spectrum as language because people don't understand. When you say spectrum, they think gradient. They think it's a line with more autistic and less autistic here. They think it's a line. They don't understand spectrum is like a circle with different areas, right? And that it means there's a variety of ways an autistic person experience being affected. They always think it is more autistic to less autistic. That's what they think. And I'm like, that's not what a spectrum is. But since so many people are either intentionally being obtuse or don't understand, like I've started to say autism is a bit more like a constellation, which is something that Rebecca Doofus, my collaborator on the Autism Identity and Me workbook that I shared last time, I think. I was like, did I share it last time? Hang on. Let me grab this workbook because it's really cool. Let me grab this. Hang on. Because I don't talk about this workbook enough, and it's really awesome. And some people don't even know I'm a writer and collaborator of books. But oh my gosh, everything's falling. Okay, let me grab this. I'm a disaster. So this is the Autism Identity and Me workbook it's about children age 10. This is the parent helper guide, and it helps autistic young people to affirm and learn about themselves and their autistic identity. And it's like a whole workbook that you can go to like learn about being autistic. And like it really is focused on the idea that every single autistic person has a very different, unique experience of being autistic. And it's about, not comparing yourself to other autistic people, but, teaches about masking. But it's about learning what being autistic means to you as an individual when you are not comparing yourself to others. It has like a sensory profile worksheet. It's a really awesome workbook. And yeah, it totally could apply to adults. I've had people ask this before. Like, yes, I have literally had adults buy and use this workbook as themselves, but I wanted to find this autism constellation thing that this is Rebecca's idea. And I think it's really amazing. I love it. And I'm going to give up if I can't find it. But let's see. Where is it? Oh, here it goes. Look, this is beautiful. This is why I love. People get confused and they think it's a spectrum is a line, but really it's more like a constellation. And I think that's just a great way of looking at it. A group of stars, a group of similar people. And so and then also they talk about like in the book, like describing autism as a color wheel because, it's not linear. For someone it might look like this, exactly. And so it's just a different way of looking at it. And so this workbook is really amazing. Rebecca did a lot of the work on this, and I just kind of helped collaborate and give feedback. And I did some illustrations and added some pieces that were specific to the US. And then being a gender fluid person, I also in the American version there is because it's the one I talked on. The European version doesn't have it. There's stuff about queer intersections in autism. And also gender identity. And so it's like all your different identities. We had Lauren, Melissa do a section on autism and race because that is too often left out of the conversation. It's a really beautiful little book that I need to plug more. Hang on, my throat just got dry and scratchy. But people misunderstand when they say autism is linear. And so that's why I say, it's autism plus. And people are like autism plus, like Disney plus. No, not exactly. Like when I say autism plus, I'm like autistic, not less autistic or more autistic, but autism plus in that there's autistic people who have additional co-occurring differences and disabilities, which can make an autistic person's life more difficult, especially if, they're like, just like with a neurodivergent person, for example, when we're neurodivergent, we are usually not neurodivergent in only one way. We often have many or multiple neurotypes in addition to being autistic. Like I'm autistic and I have CPSD I've been working through. I've got developmental trauma. I had a dissociative condition that I think is under control now, but when I was constantly dissociating, that made my life a lot harder than it is now that I've got that under control, right? And then also, I have food sensitivities. So if I don't have the right diet and my stomach is messing with me, I am having a much harder time in my life. I have intense sensory issues. And so like now I'm avoiding my sensory triggers and like I've built my life around myself. So my life is a lot easier. I'm doing a lot better. Um, if an autistic person has additional complications that motor control issues that can make it to where they physically cannot like dress themselves because they physically cannot coordinate those complex motor movements, that is going to make their life harder. They are going to need more support for that, right? If an autistic person cannot speak, especially if they haven't been given access to the proper training and teaching to help them learn how to use alternative communication devices, especially if they have complex motor control issues, not having communication is going to make their lives so much harder than me and my big mouth that never shuts up, right? Like there are additional differences autistic people can have in addition to being autistic that can make our lives so much harder. Just like, some autistic people, like we can be all over the intellectual spectrum. And so, if an autistic person has co-occurring intellectual disability, their life is going to look very different than an autistic person who, is intellectually gifted. I have so many feelings about intellectual giftedness because I was a child that was labeled gifted when I was a kid, and it was mostly used against me as a way to see like, look, you're not applying yourself. You could be doing so much better because I was gifted in reading. I was gifted in one narrow area. And it was like, you should be gifted in math and everything else too. And I was like, no, just reading. That's it. Just one thing. But it was like every time I struggled in any other area, it was like, but see, your reading scores are off the chart. This means you're just lazy and not applying yourself. And it's like, I was in mainstream, regular general education. Wasn't right for me. I was in special education. Was not right for me. I was in gifted and talented education, was not right for me either. I was in a private fundamentalist Christian academy nightmare fucking school, and that was absolutely not right for me. Like, the schools just didn't know what the fuck to do with me, this undiagnosed autistic person. So, like, I have so many feelings. None of this was in my notes. I've gone completely off track. Welcome to the shit show. I do still have more notes and things to go over. Since I brought my beautiful books here, show those one more time. Remind everyone, because a lot of new people here, I also wrote this best-selling business ethics book, Workplace Neurodiversity Rising, which I'll put links to where you can grab these. Hopefully, if I remember after the replay processes, but I just want to get in a better habit of saying, hey, did you know I'm an author? I'm self-published. This is me. I self-published this best-selling business ethics book. It was reviewed in Forbes as an excellent guide based on competence and lived experience. I think I'm quoting that correctly. Like, I got a blurb in Forbes on my little self-published business book. I'm proud of that. I think I should be, even though I hate capitalism and business. Actually, because I hate capitalism and business is why I wrote this damn book. It's like all the gripes I have with corporate America and capitalism and how businesses could be done more ethically and compassionately for not just neurodivergent people, but for all of us. Because when you do the stuff in this book, it makes your business more effective. It makes you more creative. It makes the workplace better for everyone, not just neurodivergent people. Like, you can't employ neurodivergent people if you don't do these things. Like, you can't. You need it, or we will not be able to thrive. But at the same time, neurodivergent people are often, we're like the canaries in the coal mines, right? And so, like, a lot of the stuff, while we need this to thrive in your workplaces because the systems weren't designed to take our needs into consideration, these things are essential for us, but will literally make life. I'm like a canary in the coal mine. David did that in an illustration. They will literally make life better for everyone, neurodivergent, neurotypical, whatever. I was looking for the illustration about the little plant. Basically, I just said, all these people are trying to do these neurodiversity hiring initiatives, but they don't fix their environment first. And it's a lot like trying to garden and have plants where you don't first fix the soil for your plants because you want to have this plant, and you spend all this money to get this plant, and then you put it in soil that is like the wrong pH level and doesn't have the right nutrients for the plant, and the plant's going to die because the environment was bad. And it's not that the plant was bad, it's that you didn't fix the freaking environment. And it's in here somewhere, but like, there's a lot of little metaphors in there because I'm a visual thinker, and like, it just it's just the way my brain works. So yeah, I think let me look at the comments, and then I'll go on to some of the other things I had in the notes for the what the fucks that the regime has been up to last week, because there was quite a few. And then I'll have to go before too long because I gotta pee. I've been drinking coffee all morning, and I'm gonna have to run to the bathroom eventually. Hang on. Why is this comment section so little? Like, it's like this big, and I can't even read a whole comment at a time. It's weird. Lots of comments. Drop your comments. Oh my gosh. Y'all have been really going off in the comment section. I love that. Having dialogues with each other. That's beautiful. That always makes me happy when y'all are communicating with one another and talking to each other. As long as you're being kind and compassionate with one another, I love it. Don't love when people tear each other down. That's why I don't spend a lot of time in autism spaces these days, because a lot of autism groups and spaces, and that I noticed that I used to be, I'm not in them now, but used to be like they would just tear each other down like crabs in a bucket, and it bothered me. About the Jimmy Kimmel thing, Sinclair affiliate stations will not air Jimmy Kimmel, but you can still watch on YouTube. Yeah, I'm going to be watching today. I'm looking forward to see what Kimmel says tonight when he comes back. We should still keep boycotting those stations. I'm not renewing my Hulu or my Disney Plus. The gaslighting statement yesterday proves they don't understand or care that removing the show in the first place was wrong or even misguided. Yeah, exactly. I was like, they don't care. They just want their money. So F them. My opinion. Uh, yeah. Uh, Nancy Mace wants to see trans people in straitjackets in mental institutions. Yeah, of course. Autistic people too. Just wait. Uh, Yeah, the incorrect offensive label they are putting on it is terrifying. We're having to discuss again now for safety reasons if we need to temporarily relocate. Yeah. Yeah, David on the trans community. Yeah. David and I are talking about taking a trip to go see one of our friends we haven't seen in a few years and go to some places that mean a lot to us because we don't know if we will have to evacuate the country and might not be able to come back forever or for a few years. And so, yeah, like we're really like, we're going to go say some goodbyes in case we have to evacuate the country. It's just hard. And it's like, my family needs me, so but I mean, they would want me to stay alive and not get taken. So like they get that too, but it's like, it's complicated. Like, I have a support system here. I have responsibilities here. I have people who need me here. Um, Talking about the text messages that the FBI is claiming is between um, the accused Kirk assassin and their lover. Text message sounds like two grandparents sending each other handwritten letters. Yeah, exactly. It's really like fishy and like how convenient that they like put the motive in there and they like it's just like everything they would need for a conviction. It just seems too and like I don't know young people, I would think, like, I know, and I think young people would know that you don't want to put any of that in writing in a text message because it's literally incriminating and it's not if but when that will come out. Like, don't people know? Don't text stuff like that to each other? I think that's pretty common knowledge at this point. I use APA7 format in my writings. I don't use perfect grammar in text. Yeah, who uses perfect grammar in text? Mm. Yeah, asking if I watched that rally. I don't want to watch it, but Chris says, I didn't watch it, but yes, I did worry it would turn into a Klan rally. And every clip that is aired does confirm that's what happens. Creepin' Steven, what the fuck is that guy's last name? I can't think right now. Basically vomited up an entire gobble speech. Yeah. Stephen Miller, right? Miller? Is that the guy's name? I can see his creepy ass face. I hate that guy. He's the worst. He's like been a Nazi for so long. And I knew it would be basically like a Klan rally. They had a gift shop. Of course they had a gift shop. Um, there's ice in this crap. I feel sorry for the trans and immigrant communities. Yeah. They aren't going to be satisfied with persecuting only trans people. They want every letter in the LGBTQ element. T is just the first scapegoat. Yeah, I agree. Someone says this is eugenics. Yes. Someone says it's radical Christian nationalism. Also, yes. No databases. We'll see about that because they announced some other things that they haven't really gone into yet. They announced some kind of medication that they claim is going to cure autism or help autistic people. And, I don't know enough about that particular medication to speak on it. But I did talk to some people who have taken it for other things. Like I talked to one of my community members who has taken it for seizures. And I talked to someone else who I know closely who's taken it. And they did say like in their case, it gave them a bit more mental clarity and some things, but they were definitely still autistic, definitely still autistic. So it's back to that autism plus like some of us have additional co-occurring health differences in addition to being autistic, like my stomach stuff, right? And so when our co-occurring disabilities and differences are cared for and supported, we are more functional. Like when I don't have major stomach distress. I'm a much happier person. I have less meltdowns. I am just more energetic and lively if I'm not sick. No shit. I think that's anything, whether you're autistic or not. Like, if we have our needs met and we are the most healthy versions of ourselves, we're going to do better in life. And that's true whether you're autistic or not. And I think that's something that people need to be careful on the distinctions of, right? Like, and we'll really see. Moving mobility is not always easy as packing up. Yeah. Yeah. It's not easy. It's complicated. And so people are just like, oh, I have a place in Europe. I have a place in Germany. I have a place. And it's like, they're saying I have a place, but like if you'll look on the rules for immigration and travel to some of these countries where people are like, I have a couch. It's like, yeah, but a lot of places, like there's like a travel visa and I can only go for like 180 days and then I need to come back here or go somewhere else. And coming back into the country literally puts you face to face with Customs and Border Patrol agents who will like search your phone and go through your shit and probably already have a file on me, honestly. And so, yeah, maybe I could escape for 180 days, but unless I apply for asylum, there's no guarantee I will be allowed to stay in whatever country I escape to. And so, like, I've already looked at other countries to see which are the easiest ones for me to immigrate to. I'm not going to share that because I don't want to give away my plans for my own safety. Um, but I already have like one country where it looks like I meet the qualifications, but a lot of the European countries and other countries, like, I don't feel comfortable with the immigration like requirements. I don't meet them, maybe, or like the asylum process. It's like you have to be in that country to claim asylum, and then your asylum claim could be denied. And if your asylum claim is denied, they'll send you back to America. And so going to a country and claiming asylum and then having the asylum claim denied and then being sent back to my country of origin could put me in a lot of danger because coming into America puts you face to face with Customs and Border Patrol. And that is like the worst case scenario for someone with a big mouth like me who has been really outspoken against the regime. And so that could be putting me in a lot of danger. And so really I have to look at a country that, if possible, will I qualify to immigrate into. And so I won't say which country I've been doing research on, but I have been doing research on, in case we need to get the heck out of here, what country we'll go to. And I started doing all of that when the TVE thing came down, when they started saying they want to classify trans people and our allies as violent extremists, which is like, what the man? Ah. I wish we could see each other in person, but I understand not coming to Florida. Yeah, it's like Florida's like Texas Junior, you know? I mean, I've been to Florida once a long time ago. I was in Jupiter, Florida for a speaking engagement back before the pandemic in like fall of 2019. It was very nice, very humid, very steamy. But I wanted to like travel around the country and meet up with other readers in all these different states, and money RV broke down and my consulting business fell apart. And, I had a thriving business consulting firm before DEIA became something MAGA started targeting. And so, like, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility for disabled people are under one umbrella, and they always leave off the A when they talk about DEI. They're like, DEI, but what about the accessibility for disabled people? It is part of it. And neurodiversity is diversity, and they're like anti-diversity, which is so scary because diversity is something all species need to survive. Because when you have monocultures in like nature, it's not a good thing. And so like all of nature literally thrives through diversity. Like, it's just like, you people don't understand like earth sciences and the earth and the natural world at all. I can tell by the way they're like, there's no such thing as non-binary, because literally in the natural world, nothing is binary, nothing. There's no black and white, like binary anything in nature. Like, nature is completely non-binary. Like, the only thing binary is human constructed concepts, computer code, shit like that. Humans create binaries because it is easy for our little lizard brains to digest. It's like this and that. Like, we're lazy and we want to categorize shit so we can make assumptions. And like, I don't know, with all this gender stuff, I just keep going back to the whole idea that it's like, you want to know, they want to easily know what parts you got so they know how to treat you. Like, what the fuck? Like, why do you need to know what parts I got so you know how to treat me? Can't you just treat everyone equally and with respect? Or no, not if you want to oppress certain groups of people with certain parts. That's why they think of women as less than. And so I had many feelings. Jonathan says ICE will be the 7th highest funded military in the world next year. Now they are supposed to only going after undocumented people. When are they going to say we need to mobilize against? Yeah, of course. And it's already happening because like they're trying to say that filming ICE and publishing videos of ICE online is a hostile act, which is BS. I'm in Texas too. Luckily, we're in a blue dot of the state, but yes, I don't know if I can keep staying here. I worry every day that my spouse or I will be canned me for gender identity or my ASD because he works in civil rights and isn't going to follow orders that involve persecuting protected classes. Yeah. Love hummingbirds. Yeah, hummingbirds. What's not to love? Yeah, let me see. I feel like I had a note. Oh, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Hang on. Let me get back to your comments. How are you holding up on the attacks against the neurodivergent folks yesterday from the Trump regime? I know many parents, families, autistics are super incensed right now. I think I already covered that ad nauseum. It's a funny word. I like it. I don't think Texas is safe. Yeah, no, I don't either. Someone else says Texas isn't safe. Florida isn't safe. Georgia isn't safe. Though I'm in Atlanta. Heavy blue hold still. We're amending our go plans. Yeah. Do y'all have a go plan? Anyone listening, just in case, because I am working on ours right now, just in case. I still don't understand what the hell they expect intersex children to do regarding the bathroom bill. They want to pretend intersex children don't exist and intersex people don't exist. That's what they want to pretend because that's inconvenient to their narrative. Intersex people existing is very inconvenient to their narrative that sex and gender are binary because, well, they want to pretend gender isn't a thing, but they want to pretend sex is binary. And even sex is not binary. It's just not. And we have animals that can literally change sex at will. Like plants, look at plants, okay? Look at plants, look at fungus, look at how do we think binary is a thing? It's completely unnatural. I could rant about this for a long time. Humans are weird. We create all these weird social structures and ideas that are just completely unnatural. And binary, gender, and black and white and all that, it's not natural. Justice has always been for sale, but we have turned it into a voucher system. There are countries that issue fines based on income. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. What is ABA? I call it autistic conversion therapy, neurodivergent conversion therapy. It's applied behavioral analysis, which is basically a therapy that is widely touted as this way to make autistic people appear closer to the neuronormative average. And it is a behavioral framework basically used to manipulate an autistic person's behaviors, which often come from unmet needs and unsupported autistic people. Instead of addressing the root cause of why autistic people might be acting out, it looks at squashing behaviors that are undesirable and promoting and encouraging behaviors that are seen as favorable and making us less of an inconvenience to the people around us, often at our own expense. I'm gonna actually probably, because I need to try and get some funds together in case we have to make our exit plan, because financially that's tricky for us because, it will mean income, not being here will make income and having a place to stay more complicated if we do have to evacuate. I'm thinking about, I want to do more full full-length books eventually. And Rebecca and I are working on another project that I can't say more about yet, but it's going to be really cool. I can't wait until I can tell you, but the pitch hasn't been accepted for our next book yet, but we're working on another book together. So that'll be really cool. I can't wait to tell you about that. But I want to put together some like PDF versions of some of my previous writings that have maybe been like paywalled or like Substack posts. And I'm going to do a PDF book that is my book on ABA. That's like all of the writings I've ever done and said about ABA over the years. Probably will have to revise some things because I know more now than I knew back then, right? And as is appropriate, like when we learn things, our opinions and perspectives change. So I need to update some things. But I'm thinking about doing like some little PDF books that I sell for maybe $2 to $5 each, or you can like buy it from my Fourth Wall store and download it directly, and that way the funds will go directly to me. And they'll be little cheap, affordable books on things like neurodivergent conversion therapy. So it's all in one book. I'll probably do one about sensory processing differences, and that'll be one little booklet. I'll probably, all these different topics that'll be just like little individual booklets, like what is neurodiversity and neurodivergence? Like that'll be a little booklet. And so I'll sell them like little $2 to $3, $5 books that are like little booklets that you can buy on these little mini subjects. Autism and identity, maybe like do these little individual books. Let me know. Does that sound interesting to anyone? Like these little booklets you can buy as PDFs directly from me. Like, I don't know. But that's what I'm thinking I might do to try and like kind of help support in case David and I do need to evacuate. And that way it is giving something back to you in return, hopefully, and it'll be something hopefully people find value in and will be a helpful resource to your lives because I try to always give back. And I really appreciate everyone who helps support me and my blog and David and I and the work I've been doing and the work I want to continue doing, even though it is becoming more dangerous to run my mouth. I want to give back to all of you too, if possible. So that's something I'm thinking about doing. And that'll probably work while I'm on like a little mini hiatus next week. Someone describes ABA as a system of punishments and rewards designed to cure autism. It's basically training people to change their behavior and natural reactions to stimuli. It raises PTSD. Yeah, that's a good description. So Lyric's website can do a much better job than I can here. I appreciate you. Yeah, that's one thing I might put it together in a little booklet, all the neurodivergent conversion therapy stuff. And I know parents who love ABA will come for me when I do that because ABA parents tried to behaviorism me into not speaking out about ABA. They wanted to punish me for speaking about ABA. They wanted to ABA my ass for speaking about ABA. How fitting was that? Very fitting. Pray on it. I don't know what that's in relation to, but someone says a book to read is the Autism Industrial Complex by Alicia A. Broderick. Wow. I didn't know there was actually a book called The Autism Industrial Complex, but that's something I said online years ago. There's an autism industrial complex, and people are like, conspiracy theory. And I'm like, no, it's literally a multi-billion-dollar industry. ABA is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Which is why I think I had death threats and people threatening to track me down, find me, punch me in the grocery store, or kill my dogs when I spoke out against ABA, because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Can't have little autistic people speaking out against it, Some teachers hated me. Others realized I was smart/bored. All right. I'm just kind of scrolling. No. With Autism Speaks, partner with ABA. So the tie with Autism Speaks and ABA is Autism Speaks is basically the marketing arm of the ABA industry. It's like an independent organization. They don't necessarily provide ABA, but they and refer ABA, and Autism Speaks is responsible for in the United States really propagating and perpetuating and pushing this autism is a tragedy, autism needs a cure narrative that is becoming prevalent again, that autistic people had to fight against for years to denounce. They had, if you want to look more into that, there was a video called I Am Autism that was like an anti-autistic propaganda video. And there was another one, and I can't remember the name of it right now, that was like very anti-autistic. And it was just these propaganda pieces to like, I am autism. I ruin your life. I ruin your families. I ruin everything. It was really bad. And so like they used fear and all of these different things to push families towards getting ABA because they told them if they didn't get ABA and they didn't start early, they would miss some opportunity window to like fix their autistic child. And they're like, don't you just want what's best for your child? If you don't do this, your child will never do all of these things. And so then the other consequence of this is like once autistic kids are put in ABA, anytime they learn something or they do something great, similar to Christian nationalists, and it's actually like Christian nationalists invented ABA, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Like, a lot of people talk about Ole Ivar Lovaas, which is like one of the founding fathers of ABA, but they don't talk about how Lovaas worked on the Feminine Boy Project with someone named George Reckers. And George Reckers and Ivar Lovaas were using the ABA techniques on queer youth to try and like use behaviorism to get rid of queer behaviors. And it was like the roots of gay conversion therapy there. They were using ABA methods on queer youth, and it was called the Feminine Boy Project. And so that was Ivar Lovaas and George Reckers. And George Reckers was buddy-buddy with the now departed, woohoo, piss on his grave. I'm not really telling you to do that, James Dobson. Anyone know James Dobson? Focus on the family, push behaviorism on the world via a religious lens. Focus on the family, literally pushed childhood indoctrination in the church and said, you need to start early when they're young and impressionable and easy to manipulate. It's the same shit. They encouraged ABA and behaviorism to be used on any kid that had behavioral like differences or difficulties. And so like this isn't just affecting autistic people. It's affected so many people, but autistic people were and still are one of the main focuses of using these behavioral therapies to help people assimilate, refusing assimilation. So that's something a lot of people don't know. And all of that will be in my little ABA booklet. It won't be an ABA booklet. It'll be a neurodivergent conversion therapy booklet because I don't think it's helpful even really to call it ABA because there are so many names it goes by, and some of these things have just become just how people parent. And so people have adopted these methods into their parenting techniques thanks to Dobson and George Reckers. And those motherfucking Christian nationalists, literal Christian nationalists. So, like, it's from the Christian nationalists. So that should tell you something. Yeah. Uh, yeah, and some people push for ABA reform. I just really feel like it's going to be really hard to reform something like that. And I really would love us to just have a totally new framework. Oh, look. I don't know if you said this before or after I went into it. Ivar Lovaas, the inventor of ABA, also invented gay conversion therapy, both based on curing a mental illness. His star gay conversion therapy example ended his own life 20 years after. Yeah, exactly. It didn't work, and it just destroyed that person. What if we are typical and they are the weirdos? After all, we have abilities they lack, and vice versa. But literally, I say this a lot, people are really quick to call other people, you're a neurotypical person. Um, how to say this? Like, I don't know if neurotypical people actually exist. And by that, what I mean is like typical is relative, right? And so what is considered typical is something that varies greatly depending on your time, your place, your culture, where you are living in the world. And so like it's like that's why I call it neuro average more because it's like there's an average our society is designed to cater to. It's like neuronormativity, like you are closer to the average, and um neurotypical is literally just an average some people are close to. I don't know if it's actually like I have a problem with saying like there's a neurotypical person because it implies that there's this like this typical average baseline that all people are, and really it's just like, I don't know that a person can be an average. Does that, because an average is like an average group. So you're close to the baseline, you're close to the average, but does that make sense? Am I making sense? You get what I'm trying to say here? And so like what was typical and relative 100 years ago is different than what's typical and relative now. What's typical and relative in like another part of the world, like say eye contact. Abnormal eye contact is something that is noted in autistic people in the United States, but in other cultures and countries, eye contact is not something that is thought of as typical or appropriate. And so it is less accepted depending on where you are in the world and what culture you're from. And so like there's a lot of factors that influence what typical is, and where you are, when you are, and your culture depends on what you see as typical. Okay, I'm just reading through here. I did have a few other notes. I just want to see if there's anything else in the comments I need to read before I jump up. And this one says indigenous cultures understood the value of different processing and communication of trans people, of understanding we belong to the earth, not the other way around. Yeah, no, I agree. Isham Ishmael by Daniel Quinn does a beautiful job of exploring this and comparing it to the polar opposite Western civilization, which views and treats the planet like both its possession and its enemy that must be conquered. Yeah. And so, like, that's the thing, like, fighting autism, fighting autistic people, fighting trans people. These are people that need to be conquered and assimilated. Like, that is like literally a toxic colonial, like, value, right? Yeah, instead of embrace and support. I agree. I love that y'all are just having your little back and forth with each other. I just love that. I'm just trying to see what's y'all chatting with each other. Someone talking about the autism speech yesterday. I didn't watch. I'm just angry. I have loved ones that have kids on the spectrum, etc., and I hurt for them. I'm angry on their behalf. And I had one parent say that they were worried because their kids struggling with being autistic because the world is so fucking hard for autistic kids. It's like fair and valid to struggle as an autistic person. And they're now worried like my kid's gonna blame me, like that I maybe took Tylenol when I was pregnant with them, and they're scared their kid's gonna now blame them because they took Tylenol. And it's just like we don't like that's really hurting families now. Oh, great book. Thank you. I don't know which if you're talking about this book or these books, but they are I'm a little biased, but I think they're both really great for different reasons. My school still has my copy. I think we will order some for the school. Budget comes out October 15th. I hope they're helpful. And someone said, like, since you're talking about schools, I think it might be this one. Maybe you're talking about, but I literally have known people who, even though this is a workplace business book, this can be applied to any situation where people are collaborating and working together or where there's a physical space. And this can be applied to a school setting as well. And I have known people who have teachers who have used this to work on making their class spaces more neuro-inclusive as well, because I wrote it for business, but I tried to make it to where it would be universally applicable. Someone says, F Disney, just had to get that out there. They crossed the line and you cannot uncross bringing Kimmel back. Sorry. Yeah, no, I agree. We said that earlier too. Bada bada boo, bada bada boo. So I'm trying to skim. I'm going fast to get to the bottom. Uh, Water is not safe. Yeah. Okay. I might skip some of these comments. I want to try to get to all of them, but okay, I got to the bottom. Yeah, having a baseline is suggestion that there is a fault for those who are away from the baseline. Yeah, exactly. That is kind of why I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about neurotypical anymore. And that's why I started saying neuro average. So, okay, we talked about all the autism stuff, which was a whole big detour. I knew it would be. And I think that's fair because I'm an autistic person. And there's not a lot of people who are, well, there's a lot of people who are autistic, but not a lot of people, there's limited autistic people who feel safe putting their face out there and potentially, becoming a target for it. And so those of us who can, and it's too late for me, my face is already out there. If they start coming for us, I'm fucked. So might as well. So the other ridiculous bull crap that happened this week was President Donald Trump yesterday signed an order designating Antifa, which literally stands for anti-fascists, as a domestic terror organization, which is really strange because it's not actually an organization. It's literally just being anti-fascist. It's not like there's no organization. There's no meeting for anti-fascists. Like someone might have one, but like there's no structure. Nobody's funding it. It's just like being against fascism. That means you are anti-fascism, Antifa, anti-fascism. So that's going to be really strange. And also, like, it's also like one of these presidential actions, which the president can't just create laws by putting out a presidential action. So doesn't mean he has the right to actually make this declaration either. And like before that, Trump had made a social media post saying that he would make this designation, and he called Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, and said he will be strongly recommending its funders be investigated. And I'm just like, wait, y'all have funding? Like, who has funding? Like, there's no funding for Antifa. Like, it's just people who are against fascism. And then, yesterday we had the official executive order come down that basically, said, "Oh, Antifa is a terrorist organization." When it's not even an organization. There is no organization, which is why it makes no freaking sense. And like, you can be a Republican, a Democrat, a centrist. Like, you can be. I have no political affiliation at all. I'm not. I don't have any party loyalty. But like, you could be of any political group and be anti-fascist. And so like, it's like, what's Antifa? It is, just make sure this is a clear definition so people understand. It is short for anti-fascists. And Antifa is not like a single organization. It is an umbrella term that is used to describe groups and people who are dedicated to confront or resist neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and fascism. So if you're anti-Antifa, if you are anti-fascist, that means you are pro neo-Nazi, pro white supremacist, and pro fascism. Being anti-fascist sounds to me like something a fascist would do and say. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but let me just read from the presidential action now that we've kind of made sure that definition is understood, right? So I'm just going to quote this out of the president's action he put out last night. This is what he's saying about Antifa, or the regime is saying about Antifa. It said, and this is all false information and propaganda. I'll preface that with that. It said, Antifa is a materialist, anarchist enterprise. An enterprise? What? That explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement authorities, and our systems of law. Only if they're fascist. Continues, it uses illegal means to organize and execute a campaign of violence and terrorism nationwide to accomplish these goals. What? This campaign involves coordinated efforts to obstruct enforcement of federal laws through armed standoffs with law enforcement, organized riots, violent assaults, and immigration and customs enforcement and other law enforcement officers, and routine doxing of and other threats against political figures and activists. What? They're the ones that, like, MAGA literally has militias, like armed militias. Like, have you seen the armed militias yet? Because I'm in Texas. I've definitely seen the armed militia. They showed up when there was a protest in a small town not far from me they were protesting to try and get a Confederate statue removed, and the fucking militia came up to intimidate people who were protesting the Confederate statue and trying to push to have it removed. So they literally come with, like, armed. I've not seen anti-fascists ever be armed. So I don't know what they're talking about. And it continues and says, Antifa recruits, trains, and radicalizes young Americans to engage in violence and suppression of political activity that employs elaborate means and mechanisms to shield the identities of operatives, cancel its funding sources and operations, conceals its funding sources and operations in effort to frustrate law enforcement and to recruit additional members. Where are these Antifa training camps they claim are happening? Because I have never seen or heard of that being a thing. And I think it's funny to say we're doing this in order to frustrate law enforcement, because frustrating law enforcement is somehow criminal now. Nope, sounds like January 6thers. Yeah, I agree. It does sound like January 6thers. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's all lies and propaganda. And it's like, I'm sorry, if you're anti-fascist, that literally just means you're pro-fascist. And so they want to say anyone who's against fascism is a terrorist now. So being against fascism means you are calling for the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement authorities, and systems of law, according to the presidential action that was put out yesterday. So if you're against fascism, they say you're against the American government. Does that mean the American government is fascist now? Because anti-fascists are literally only against fascism and white supremacy. So I'm just going to leave you with that. And the last atrocity and piece of BS I want to talk about today are the Trump gold cards. Because there was a presidential action around the Trump gold cards. And I wanted to read an excerpt from that talks more about our caste system, our capitalist money-based caste system that we pretend we don't have in the United States. And so the presidential action about the Trump gold cards, that came out this week, said, "It is a priority of my administration to realign federal immigration policy with the nation's interests by ending illegal immigrants and prioritizing the admission of aliens who will affirmatively benefit the nation, including successful entrepreneurs, investors, and businessmen and women. To advance that policy, I hereby announce Gold Cards, a visa program overseen by the Secretary of Commerce that will facilitate the entry of aliens who have demonstrated their ability and desire to advance the interests of the United States by voluntarily providing a significant financial gift to the nation." So, you give $1 million, you're okay. We don't want any poor immigrants. We only want millionaires. We want people who have $1 million to spare and who can afford to give a gift of $1 million. And if you can't afford to give a gift of $1 million, F you. What the fuck do I even do with that? Like, we have a caste system in the United States, and it's on full display right now that if you are not someone who is producing large amounts of financial capital, they do not care about you. They do not want you. That's why they're trying to take away government benefits. That's why they want to criminalize homelessness. Where are all the homeless people that were in DC before they started rounding people up? You know, they're saying, oh, there used to be all these tents everywhere, and now there aren't tents. It's not about tents. Where are the fucking people that were in those tents? Just like when they say these Venezuelan vessels they keep targeting, they're like, it's a war on drugs. No, it's a fucking war on people. There were people on those boats. Drug dealers in the United States used to be entitled to a trial, court of law. This administration is just fucking executing people and saying it's a war on drugs, but you can't go to war with a fucking inanimate object. Sorry, I'm getting heated. Like, you are doing a war on people, just like this war on trans people, they call it a war on transgender ideology. It's not a war on an ideology. It's a war on trans people. It's a war on people. This war on autism is a dehumanizing tactic separating the autism from the autistic people because it is a war on autistic people. All of this is dehumanizing rhetoric. And it's on full display. All right, everyone. I've got to pee. I'm like dying. This has been like more than a 2 hour long live, which means it's probably gonna take a while to process. I've had so much coffee and so much lemonade. I can't keep doing this, so I'm gonna have to log off soon. Stay tuned because those little booklets, I'm gonna do my conversion therapy book. I'm gonna do a neurodiversity theory little mini book. I'm gonna be putting out some little PDF books that are like cheap little PDF download books that you can download directly from me. I'll probably put them on my website or my Fourth Wall store so you can download them directly from me. And that they'd be super affordable because I'm not going to go through the traditional publishing channels, which I did. I have books that have gone through to the traditional publishing channels. Workplace Neurodiversity Rising is available audiobook, print books, PDFs. You can get them on my Fourth Wall store directly as a PDF for me, and that is the best way. If you want money to go directly to me, buy a PDF of this from my Fourth Wall store because those sales go straight to me. If you buy it, for anywhere else, they take a big cut. These guys are only available through Routledge, which is our publisher, because these are through a real publisher. And stay tuned because Rebecca and I are going to be announcing our next collaboration once it's accepted. Once Rebecca's doing so much of the freaking work. Rebecca's like putting together the proposal and everything to pitch this to publishers to get to pitch our next one to publishers to get it out. She pitched this one and then she just signed me on. Like, I feel like I'm riding Rebecca's coattails because Rebecca's a badass. Honestly, like Rebecca was like the brilliant mind behind these, and I just helped support and add my 2 cents to it and make an American version. But I'm still a writer of books. I've just been out here running my mouth, and if you can help support, share this blog, if you can subscribe to Substack monetarily, that's really helpful. But if not, sharing my posts, sharing my videos, sharing my content, sharing my Substack. If you've read any of these, if you can review them, if you like them. If you didn't like them, don't review them. But if you like them, give them a review because that helps more people see them. I don't have a marketing team or anybody helping me put these out. That's really helpful. The other thing you can do that's really freaking helpful with any author, if you want to support them, call your local library, email your local library, and request them carry these books. Because then you don't have to buy them and you can go check them out for free and read them. And, it does still help authors. And actually, when you request a book in a library, they often pay the author a little bit more than if the author would be getting a book that's purchased at any other place because the library assumes that multiple people are going to read that book and check it out. And so they pay the author more when they get it at a library. So requesting these books at your local library actually really, really helps me if you want to do that. Any of them, like request your libraries to carry them. That is super helpful. Review them. Those are things you can do that cost you nothing because I totally get being broke right now. Totally get it. And so, like I said, the monetary support is great, but only if that's something you can do. Like never, 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 never hurt yourself to support my work. That's why it's like there are many ways that don't cost money that you can help support me. And sometimes just sharing is caring. All right, all. It's hot. I gotta turn my AC on. I gotta pee because I'm like jumping up and down doing a pee dance. Um, Replay will be up in a bit, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye, all.